Good evening, guys. In the previous session, we discussed about what is auto wiring and what are the modes of the auto wiring. Auto wiring is used to identify the dependent bin and inject into target bin. That auto wiring will done by IOC container depends on auto wiring modes by name, by type, and constructor modes available. Then after that, we discussed about what is bin lifecycle. So bin lifecycle, that means the Java class which is managed by IOC container is called as Spring Bean. Spring Bean object creation, Spring Bean object destruction will be taken care by IOC container. As part of that lifecycle process, if you want to customize that Bean object, you can execute some lifecycle methods. So Bean lifecycle methods we can execute in three ways. One is by using XML, and the second one is by using programmatic approach, and the third one is by using annotations. In total in three ways, we can execute lifecycle methods of our Spring Bean. So that is what we covered in the last session. All of you practiced all the topics that we covered so far in the Spring Core. All of you practiced all the topics that we covered in the Spring Core. Okay. From today, I'm going to discuss annotations in the Spring. Now, we are not going to use, from now onwards, we are not going to use XML because XML is outdated approach, but we got some basic idea how to work with the XML file in the Spring framework. Okay. From today, I'm going to use annotations, Spring annotations concept that I'm going to use. Okay. So what is annotation? Annotation represents metadata. What is annotation, guys? It is used to represent metadata. Annotations introduced in Java 1.5 version. Introduced in Java 1.5 version. Spring supports for these annotations. Annotations are used to represent metadata. Annotations introduced in Java 1.5 version. From Spring 3.0 onwards, Spring also supporting for annotations. Annotations are alternate for XML. Annotations are alternate for XML configurations. So what are the configurations that we are doing by using XML file? In the previous sessions also, we created Beans configuration file and we configured our Java class as a Spring Bean. Okay. From today, we are not going to use that XML. We are going to use annotation based configuration. So annotation represents metadata. Annotations introduced in Java 1.5 version. Annotations are alternate for XML configurations. In the Spring, we have several annotations. In Spring and Spring Boot, we have several annotations. In Spring Framework, we have several annotations, right? What are those annotations? Now, first one, guys. So here we need to talk about one annotation called @configuration. What is the purpose of this @configuration? @configuration annotation represents to represent Java class as configuration class. @configuration annotation, it is going to represent Java class as configuration class. Okay. And the second one, @component scan. @component scan to identify Spring Bean classes in the project. Our classes can be available in multiple packages. In which packages our Spring Bean classes are available? To identify those classes, we can use @component scan. @configuration annotation, it is used to represent the Java class as a configuration class. So earlier, we used the XML file to configure our classes as a Spring Bean. From now onwards, we are going to use annotations. So one Java class will be represented as a configuration class. That means that class is alternate for the XML. To represent the Java class as a configuration class, we will use @configuration annotation. And what is @component scan? Component scan is used to identify Spring Bean classes available in the project. The next one, @component to represent Java class as Spring Bean. Java class as Spring Bean. We have used bean tag, right? Instead of using bean tag, we can use @component. @component is used to represent the Java class as Spring Bean. Now we can use @service annotation, and we can use @repository annotation also. @service also will represent Java class as a Spring Bean. @service repository also will represent Java class as a Spring Bean. Sir, all these three classes are representing Java class as a Spring Bean. Then what is the difference between them? We'll talk about that. @component will represent our Java class as a Spring Bean. @service will represent our Java class as a Spring Bean. @repository will represent our Java class as a Spring Bean. Basically, here database logic related component, database logic class. Service, nothing but business classes will be used. Business classes we are using. Database persistent classes we will use as repository. Persistence layer classes. Persistent layer classes will use repository. Business layer classes will use @service. The Java class which contains the business logic, to represent that Java class as a Spring Bean, we will be using @service annotation. Any Java class which contains the database communication logic, to represent that Java class as a Spring Bean, we will use @repository annotation. And the next one, @scope annotation, to represent bean scope. To represent bean scope. By default, bean scope is a singleton. If you want to customize the bean scope, then we can go for @scope annotation. And we have @auto-void annotation. @auto-void annotation is available to perform dependency injection. Auto-void annotation is used to perform dependency injection. And we are having @qualifier. So to perform auto wiring based on bean name, based on by name type. To perform auto wiring based on by name qualifier. And here we have @primary. @primary to represent primary bean for auto wiring. To represent a primary bean for auto wiring. And we have an annotation called @bean annotation. So to call the method which returns bean object. To call the method which returns the bean object. Okay, these are the most important annotations that we need to know to work with the Spring framework. First one is @configuration. What is the purpose of @configuration? It is used to represent our Java class as a configuration class. What is a component scan? To identify Spring Bean classes in the project, we will be using component scan. What is a component? Component is used to represent Java class as a Spring Bean. What is a service? It is used to represent Java class as a Spring Bean, but the classes which contains the business logic, those classes will be represented as Spring Beans by using service annotation. So here @repository. So to represent the Java class as a Spring Bean, we can go for repository annotation. So generally the classes which are responsible to communicate with the database, for those classes we will be using repository annotation. What is the scope annotation? Scope annotation is used to represent bean scope. By default, every Spring Bean scope is a singleton. If you want to change the scope of the bean, then we can go for @scope annotation. @auto-void, this annotation is used to perform dependency injection. Instead of we are injecting one bean object into another bean manually, Spring can inject it by using auto wiring. When we are going for auto wiring, if you want to identify the beans by name, then we can use qualifier annotation. By using qualifier annotation, we can tell that which bean it has to inject into target. Suppose When we go for auto wiring with by type, there is a chance of matching with multiple beans with the data type. Then ambiguity problem will come. To overcome that ambiguity problem, to resolve that ambiguity problem, we will use @primary annotation. Primary annotation will represent the primary bean for auto wiring. @bean annotation. @bean annotation means I don't want IOC to create the object for my class. I will create the object for my class in my method. IOC, you just to call my method, I will give the object for you. You consider that object as a string bean. In that scenario, we will go for @bean annotation. Guys, these annotations not only in the Spring framework, these annotations are not only in the Spring framework, even these annotations are available when we go for Spring Boot also. When we go for Spring Boot also, these annotations will be available. And similarly, we are going to see in future @controller annotation and @rest controller annotation. @controller annotation, @rest controller annotation will be available. These are related to WebMVC. I'm not discussing WebMVC annotations now because in the WebMVC, there are so many annotations available. Controller, REST controller, request body, response body, request param, path variable, get mapping, post mapping, put mapping, delete mapping. There are several annotations available in the Spring WebMVC. I'm not talking about them now. I'm talking about the annotations which are related to core module. When we go for the Spring WebMVC, at that time, we will work with those annotations also. Are you clear? I'm not writing WebMVC annotations here because there are several annotations available in the WebMVC. Once we start the WebMVC, we will talk about them. Once we start the WebMVC, then we can talk about them. Come on, guys, please read these annotations. In the Spring Boot also, we are going to use these annotations. These are very, very important. Come on, please read it. Clear? Configuration, component scan, component, service, repository, scope, auto wide, qualifier, primary, bean. Auto wiring can be used for both by name as well as by type also. Auto wiring can be used with by name as well as by type also. Now, let us develop one simple application by using annotations now. Earlier we used XML. Now we are going to use annotations. Okay, let's see here. File, new, other. We'll be using Maven project. Create a simple Maven project. Group ID, I'm giving in.ashok.it. Artifact ID 04 Spring annotations application. Click on finish. So we need to configure Spring dependency. So let me take this Spring context dependency. Let me add that in our form.xml. Go to project form.xml. It is a Maven simple application, so no dependencies are available. I'm adding Spring context as a dependency for this. Now, once we added Spring context as a dependency for this, let me create one Java class, new class. Okay, here I'm using in.ashok.it.beans. I'm taking the class name as some car. Okay, so here I'm using @component. What is the meaning of @component? To represent this class as a string bean. System.out.println, I'm taking it as car construct. I'm taking it as a car constructor. Are you clear? I'm taking this class as a car constructor. Car class I have taken. Now here I'm going to take one more class that is called some motor. Taking a class called motor. So now here I'm representing this class also as a component. Now write a constructor. System.out.println of motor. This is motor constructor. Car constructor I have taken, motor constructor I have taken. So these car class and motor class, normal Java classes, these are Spring Bean classes. Guys, car and motor these are normal Java classes, and these are Spring Bean classes. These are Spring Bean classes. How can we say them? These are Spring Bean classes. How can we say these are Spring Bean classes? Because I'm using annotation called @component. What is the purpose of component? To represent a Java class as a Spring Bean. Now here I'm taking one more class called user DAO. I'm taking one more class called user DAO. In this class, I'm writing user DAO constructor. System.out.println user DAO constructor. User DAO constructor. This user DAO, I want to represent as a Spring Bean. For that, I'm using @repository annotation. What is the purpose of repository annotation? It is used to represent Java class as a Spring Bean. Basically, DAO class nothing but data access logic. The class which contains persistence logic, that is called as a DAO. So to represent DAO class as a Spring Bean, I'm using @repository annotation. Okay. Now here I'm taking one class called user service. I'm taking one class called user service. So in the user service class, I'm writing one constructor just to understand whether object is creating or not. Fine. System.out.println, I'm taking user service constructor. Now to represent this class as a Spring Bean, I'm writing @service annotation. Okay guys, so car class is available, that is represented as a Spring Bean. Motor class is available, represented as a Spring Bean. User DAO class available, represented as a Spring Bean. User service available, represented as a Spring Bean. Now let me create another Java class called robot. So this robot is a normal Java class. I'm not taking this as a Spring Bean. Just I'm writing robot. System.out.println robot constructor. Can I call robot as a Spring Bean? Guys, is my robot is a Spring Bean or my robot is not Spring Bean? Robot is not Spring Bean because there is no annotation for that. It is a normal Java class. Now, I already represented these classes as some class. Total, there are 5 classes available. Out of the 5 classes, 4 classes represented as a Spring Beans. 4 classes represented as a Spring Bean. 1 class is not represented as a Spring Bean. Now here, I need to represent one class called app_config class. I need to represent one class called app_config class. So here, let me write a constructor for app_config. System.out.println app_config constructor. App_config constructor. I have created this class as a config class. I want to represent this class as a configuration class. How to represent this class as a configuration class? By using configuration annotation. How to represent this class as a configuration class? By using configuration annotation. What is the purpose of configuration? To represent Java class as a configuration class. Okay, fine. So let us understand what is this configuration. Let me write my Java class. To start the IOC container, in.ashokit.driver. Now I'm going to take my main app. Inside this, I'm writing a main method. Earlier, we created IOC container by using application context. Application context is equal to, earlier what we used, new class path XML application context. Earlier, we used this concept, right? Beans.xml, we passed that. But today, do I have that XML file or I don't have that XML file? Till yesterday, we have created the IOC container by using application context. For that, I'm using new class path XML application context. I have given beans.xml as an input. But today, do we have that XML file or we have Java class as a configuration class? Do we have that XML file or we have Java class as a XML file? We don't have the XML file. We are using annotations. So I have a app config class, which is representing as a configuration class. So I need to tell to IOC to use the configuration class. Application context is equal to new annotation config application context. Okay, guys. Annotation config application context. My class is appconfig.class. My class is appconfig.class. So earlier we have given class path XML application context class. For that class, we have given beans.xml file as an input. But today we are using annotation config application context. For that, we are giving app config class as an input. Okay, guys, let us see. Is it going to create the object for all the classes or not? Let us try this. Run as Java application. Now, so here, is it creating object for all the Spring Bean classes or it is not creating object for all the Spring Bean classes? Is it creating object for the Spring Bean classes or it is not creating object for the Spring Bean classes? Is it creating object for the Spring Bean classes or it is not creating object for the Spring Bean classes? Not creating object for the Spring Bean classes. Why? Because it is not able to understand where the Spring Bean classes available in the project. My IOC container not able to understand where Spring Bean classes available in the project. What I need to do now? I need to tell to IOC container to perform scanning. I need to tell to IOC container. I need to tell to IOC container to perform component scanning. What is the meaning of component scanning? Component scanning is nothing but an annotation which is used to identify Spring Bean classes available in the project. Okay, component scan is the annotation which is used to identify Spring Bean classes available in the project. Are you guys getting my point? Now I need to tell to this configuration class, hey, configuration class, you perform component scan also. You perform component scan also. Now see here, I have taken one configuration class and for that configuration class, I'm giving component scan annotation. What is the purpose of component scan annotation? It is used to identify Spring Bean classes available in the project. Earlier, when we use XML, in the XML file, we configure the bean definitions. But today, we don't have XML. We are going for annotations. So here I'm giving component scan. Component scan represents search for the Spring Beans. That means if the class is represented as a Spring Bean by component, take it. Motor is a component. DAO is a component. DAO is a Spring Bean. Service is a Spring Bean. Robot is not a Spring Bean. Ignore that. Configuration class. You are a configuration class. You scan for the beans available in the project. You scan for the beans available in the project. That is the meaning of component scan. That is the meaning of component scan. Okay. Main app.java. Application context is equal to new annotation config application context. I'm giving app config.class. Run this program. Run as a Java application. Now, can you see the beauty? Guys, can you see the beauty? Is it creating object for all the Spring Bean classes or not? Is it creating object for all the Spring Bean classes or not? How it is creating, how it created now, why it is not created earlier? If I remove component scan, what will happen now? If I remove component scan and if I execute this program, is it identifying the Spring Beans available in the project, or it is not able to identify Spring Beans available in the project? It is not able to identify Spring Beans available in the, it is not able to identify Spring Bean classes available in the project. So is it creating object for all the classes available in the project, or it is not creating for robot? Is it creating the object for the robot class, or it is not creating the object for the robot? It is not creating object for the robot. Why it is not creating object for the robot? Robot is not represented as a Spring Bean. Car class is represented as a Spring Bean by using component. Motor class is represented as a Spring Bean by using component. User DA were represented as a Spring Bean by using repository. User service represented as a Spring Bean by using service. Robot is a normal Java class. That's why object is not created for the robot. App config is a configuration class. I'm telling the app config to perform component scan. And here I have started my IOC container. Application context is equal to new annotation config application context app config.java. I have given app config as a configuration class. This class is having component scan. Okay, now let me do one small change. So here I'm creating one package, new class. I'm creating a new package, guys, that is report. New package report. In the report, I'm creating report service. Let us see here what is the behavior. Very important concept, guys. Today, please focus. System.out.println. I'm using report service constructor. I'm representing this class as a Spring Bean @service. I'm representing this class as a Spring Bean @service. So now tell me, report service class is a Spring Bean or report service class is not a Spring Bean? Report class is a Spring Bean or report class is not a Spring Bean? Report class is a Spring Bean. So when I run this application, object will be created or object will not be created? Object will be created, object will not be created, will not be created. Why it will not be created for report service? Observe, guys, observe. Right click, run as Java application. Report service object is created or report service object is not created. Report service object is created or report service object is not created. Report service object is not created. Why? Because it is in the different package. App config class is available inside in.ashokit.beans package. When we tell to do the component scan, it will do the component scan only in this package. Okay, so I specified @component scan for app config. I have given configuration. It is a configuration class, but here component scan is given. But by default, whenever we write a component scan annotation, it will search only in the current package for the bean classes. In the current package, car is a bean class, object is created. Motor is a bean class, object is created. Robot is not a bean class, object not created. User DAO is a bean class, object created. User service is a bean class, object created. It is checking only in the current class package name. Okay, guys. It is in the current package name. It is only creating the objects for the classes which are available in the current package. How can we tell to this IOC container? How can we tell to this configuration class, please scan all the packages in the project? That's where base package naming convention comes into picture. Okay, guys, in the real time, are we going to create all the classes in one package, or we are going to create the classes in multiple packages in the real time? Guys, in the real time, are we going to In the real time, are we going to create all the classes in one package, or we will be creating the classes in multiple packages? Are we going to develop all the classes in one package, or we are going to develop the classes in multiple packages? Come on, answer my question. Are we going to develop all the classes in one package, or we are going to develop the classes in multiple packages? We are going to develop the classes in multiple packages. Then how to tell to configuration class to search all the packages? We need to tell that search in all the packages available in the project. How to tell that is we are going to specify base package. What we are going to specify, guys? Base package we are going to specify. I'm going to specify base package as in.ashok.it. I will specify base package as in.ashok.it. I will tell you what is base package, how it is working. Now, my test class. This is my test class which I am using to start the IOC container, run as a Java application. Now, can you see report service object is also created now? Can you see report service object also created now? Why it is creating now? Why not it created earlier? Earlier it is not created because report service available in the different package. Now here I'm telling that you go to appconfig.class. You go to appconfig.class. In the appconfig, I have a configuration and I have a component scan. What is the component scan? I have given the base package name as in.ashok.it. That means in the project, it will search all the packages which are starting with in.ashok.it. Base package name in.ashok.it means in.ashok.it.beans will be scanned, in.ashok.it.driver will be scanned, in.ashok.it.report will be scanned, in.ashok.it.util package also will be scanned. I'm creating another class called email utils. This email utils I'm creating in another package in.ashok.it.util package. In.ashok.it.util package. So let me create a constructor system.out.println email utils constructor @component. Now guys, tell me, email utils is a Spring Bean or email utils is a normal Java class? Email utils is a Spring Bean and it is a normal Java class. Email utils is a Spring Bean and it is a normal Java class, Spring Bean. So email utils class package is matching with the base package name or not? It is matching with the base package name or not? Matching. So now, will that class identified as part of component scanning, or that class will not be identified as part of component scanning? The class will be identified as a component as part of component scanning, or will not be identified as part of component scanning? That class will be identified as part of component scanning. Now run this. Run as Java application. Now you see here, email utils class object also created. That means email utils also part of this Spring Bean. So email utils object is also created by our IOC container. Okay. Now guys, if you observe, configuration class, is it recommended to keep in the beans package, or configuration class we need to keep in the separate package? Beans nothing but the classes which are managing by IOC container. Is it recommended to keep app config in the beans package, or we need to keep that in a separate package? We need to keep that in the separate package. So let me create a separate package in.ashok.it.config that is related to configuration. App config class I will keep in the config package and I will remove from the beans package. Okay, so now app config is available in the separate package app config class. So what is the base package name I have given? In.ashok.it. What is the meaning of in.ashok.it? See here, when I give base package name as in.ashok.it, base package is equal to in.ashok.it. Now, in my project, I have a package called in.ashokit.beans. It will be scanned or will not be scanned? Will be scanned or will not be scanned, guys? Will be scanned. Why this package will be scanned? Because this package is starting with the base package name. That means this package is called as a sub package of the base package. So whenever you configure the component scan, it will scan all the sub packages of the base package. What is a sub package of the base package? Any package name which is starting with the base package name is called as a sub package. It will be scanned. For example, I'm taking one package called in.ashokit.utils. This package will be scanned or this package will not be scanned. Guys, this package will be scanned or this package will not be scanned. It will be scanned. Why? Because this package also starting with the base package name. So here we can say will be scanned. This package also will be scanned. Okay, I'm taking one more package called in.ashokit.dao. This package will be scanned or this package will not be scanned. In.ashokit.dao, this package will be scanned or this package will not be scanned. Come on, will be scanned. Why? It is also part of the base package, so it will be scanned. Here I am typing a package called com.ashokit.service. This package will be scanned or this package will not be scanned. Will be scanned or will not be scanned? Come on, guys. Will not be scanned. Will not be scanned. Will not be scanned. Why? Because this package is not following the base package naming convention. So whenever you go for component scanning concept, we need to follow base package naming convention. We need to follow base package naming convention. So it will scan any package which is starting with in.ashokit. In.ashokit.beans. This package will be scanned. What is the meaning of scanning the package? It will check all the classes in that package, or those classes are represented as Spring Beans or not, it is going to identify. If those classes are represented as Spring Beans, then objects will be created for those classes. In.ashokit.beans, yes, this is a part of the base package. It will be scanned. For the classes which are available in the package, object will be created. Why object is not created for robot, even though it is available in the correct package? Robot is not a Spring Bean. User DAO object created. User service object created. Main class available, leave that. Report service. This report service object created because package is matching. Email utils, package matching, object is created. Now, suppose for example, let me take one package called new class. I'm taking this as trigger service. Trigger service, I'm taking in a different package, com.ibm.service. Com.ibm.service, this class I'm representing as a Spring Bean, system.out.println trigger service. Trigger service. I will be specifying constructor. I'm going to represent this class as a service class. For trigger service represented as a Spring Bean, object will be created for the trigger service. Object will not be created for the trigger service. Object will be created for the trigger service. Object will not be created. Object will not be created. So that class is represented as a Spring Bean or not represented as a Spring Bean. Class is represented as a Spring Bean, but object will be created or object will not be created. Class is represented as a Spring Bean only, but object will be created or object will not be created. Object will be created or object will not be created. Come on. Will not be created. Why it will not be created? Why object will not be created? Come on, guys. Package name is not matching with the base package. What is the base package we have given in the configuration class? In.ashokit. But this package name is com.ibm. So it is not matching. So that object will not be created by our IOC container. that package will not participate in the component scanning process. See here, trigger service object is not created. Trigger service object is not created. Can we specify more than one base package? Yes, now I am going to specify com.ibm also as a base package. So base packages, it is a array type. in.ashoka IT is one base package in the project. com.ibm is another base package in the project. Come on guys. So base package is a array type. So can I give two base packages? Can I give three base packages also? Yes, you can give two base packages as well as three base packages as well as 5 base packages also you can provide. There is no problem. There is no problem. You can pass any number of packages for the base packages. But is it recommended to do like that? Is it recommended to create the packages without proper syntaxes? No. Always follow some standards while creating the packages. Always follow some standards while creating the packages. Always follow some standards while creating the packages. Don't give multiple base packages because it will lead to confusion. Okay. So always we need to follow some package naming structure in the project. Always we need to follow some package naming structure in the project. Always we need to follow some package naming structure in the project. Are you guys getting my point? All right. Next one. So we are able to give two base packages. Then let us see, is it going to consider the two base packages or not? Right click, run as Java application. Now can you see? Trigger service object also created, which is available in the IBM package. Is it creating or not? That means two base packages are working or not working. Trigger service available in the which package? com.ibm. Report service available in in.ashoka.report. So that means, are we able to give two base packages or we are not able to give two base packages? Are we able to give two base packages or we are not able to give two base packages? We are able to give the two base packages. So now can you tell me what is the purpose of component scan annotation here? And what is the purpose of configuration annotation? And what is the purpose of component scan annotation? Configuration annotation is used to represent the Java class as a configuration class. Configuration annotation is used to represent the Java class as configuration class. Component scan annotation to identify Spring Bean classes available in the project based on base package name. Okay. Component scan is used to identify Spring Bean classes available in the project based on base package name. Got it? Configuration to represent the Java class as a configuration class. Component scan to identify Spring Bean classes available in the project based on base package name. Component to represent the Java class as a Spring Bean. Service to represent the Java class as a Spring Bean. So any class which contains the business logic, such kind of classes will be represented as a Spring Bean by using @service. @repository. It is also used to represent Java class as a Spring Bean. Basically, the classes which contains persistence logic, for those classes we will give repository annotation. Are you clear? Now I have a question. Car class. Who is creating object for the car? Programmer is creating object for the car. IOC is creating object for the car. Who is creating object for the car? Programmer is creating object for the car. IOC creating object for the car. Come on. IOC creating object for the car. Why IOC creating object for the car? Why IOC is creating object for the car? Because car class is represented as a Spring Bean. That's why IOC is creating object for the car class. Okay. For robot, IOC is creating the object, or IOC is not creating the object for the robot. For car, IOC creating the object because car is, for car, IOC creating the object because car is represented as a Spring Bean. For the robot, IOC creating the object or IOC not creating the object, IOC not creating the object because it is not a Spring Bean. Now, what I want to do is, for robot class, IOC should not create the object. For robot class, IOC should not create the object. I want to create the object for the robot. Spring IOC should consider the robot as a Spring Bean. Some classes, IOC can create the object. For few classes, I don't want IOC to create the classes. I want to create the class for, I want to create the object for the class. I want to build that object based on my requirement. Okay. In order to do that, we will write one method, public robot build robot object. Build robot. Public robot build robot. Here I'm going to write my logic. Okay, return new robot. Robot R is equal to new robot return R. Return robot. So who is creating object for the robot? Programmer is creating the object or IOC creating the object for the robot? Programmer is creating the object for the robot or IOC creating the object for the robot? Programmer creating the object. Now, I want IOC to call this method. IOC, you create the object for the car. You create the object for the motor. You create the object for DAO. You create object for service, user service. For robot, you don't create the object. I will give the object for you. You take this object and consider as a Spring Bean. So in the project, some scenarios will be available like Swagger configuration, data source configuration, okay, security configuration. So Spring don't know for which methods it has to apply the security. I know that for which methods I need security. I know for which method I need documentation. I know for which methods unit testing is required. Like that, I want to create the object for that particular class. Spring should call this method. Spring should consider robot as a Spring Bean. Car is a Spring Bean, but car object is creating by IOC. I want robot also as a Spring Bean, but I will create the object. For that, we will use a method annotation called @bean. Guys, whatever the annotations I have given here, all these annotations are class level annotations. Only bean is the method level annotation. Bean annotation is the method level annotation. Whenever you are writing the logic to create the object for a particular class and you want IOC to call this method, you want IOC to consider the robot as a Spring Bean, then we will give @bean object. So what is the difference between car and robot now? Car and robot both are Spring Beans only. There is no difference. But the only thing is, for car class, object will be created by IOC. For the robot, object is creating by programmer. But at the end of the day, both are Spring Beans only. Car class object is created by IOC container. Robot class object is created by programmer because we have some custom requirement. We have some custom requirement. Now let's run our IOC container and see the robot object is created or not. Robot constructor is executed. Yes, who is calling that method? Am I calling that method or IOC container calling this method? Am I calling this method? IOC container calling this method? IOC container calling this method. So what I am doing in this method? I am writing the logic to create the robot object and I am returning that robot object. So IOC container will call this method. It will take the object which I am giving. That's it. For the remaining classes, IOC only create the object. Only for the robot, it will take the object from my method and will represent that object as a Spring Bean. In future, when we are going to develop a Swagger, let me show you. In future, we are going to develop the Swagger configurations. When we write the Swagger configuration, we need to write our own configurations here. We need to write our own configurations here. Let me take Spring Boot REST Swagger application. In future, we are going to develop the Swagger concept. When we are developing the Swagger concept, config class will be available. Swagger config is available. I want to represent this class as a configuration class @configuration. I want to create the object for the docket object. Okay, for that I'm giving @bean. So docket is a Spring Bean object only, but who is creating the docket object? I am creating the docket object with my requirement. I am returning the docket object. So, sir, when we will use @bean annotation in the project, what is the purpose of @bean? If you don't want IOC to create the object for your class, then you will write the logic in your own method to create the object. IOC container will call that method, will take the object given by the method, will represent that object as a Spring Bean. What is the scenario? Swagger configuration is one of the best example for that. Any kind of Swagger configuration is one of the best example for that. Okay, guys. Now, when the IOC container started, this method is executing or this method is not executing. When I start my IOC container, this bean method is executed or bean method is not executed? Executed because I'm not calling that method now. I'm just starting my IOC container. When I start my IOC container, that bean method is executed. That is the reason robot object is created. I'm writing the logic to create the object. Understood? Now, do you understand configuration? Configuration annotation to represent the Java class as a configuration class. Component to scan to identify Spring Bean classes available in the project based on the base package names. You can give more than one base package name also. Suppose, guys, if I don't give the base package name for the configuration class, then what will happen? If I don't give this base package name, then what will happen? Come on. If I don't give the base package name, then what will happen? If I don't give the base package name, then what will happen? It will scan its own current class package. It will scan only config package. It will scan only config package. But I want to scan the whole project packages. Then I need to configure base package. Okay. So now do you understand what is @configuration? What is @bean? Are you guys able to understand what is @configuration? What is @bean? @configuration is used to represent our Java class as a configuration class. @bean means in some scenarios, we don't want IOC to create the object for our class. We want to create the object for the class to represent that object as a Spring Bean. So for that, we will write @bean. So @component, @service, @repository, these are class level annotations. Bean is a method level annotation. Bean is a method level annotation. Who is calling this bean annotation method? Who is calling this bean annotation method? Programmer is calling this method or IOC calling this method? Come on, guys. Am I calling that method or IOC calling that method? IOC container calling that method. Can you tell me any scenario in your project where you have used @bean? Can we say Swagger config, Swagger config, Kafka config? So many classes will come in the coming classes. In the future sessions, we will understand @bean annotation, where to use in the real time. Where to use in the real time, we'll understand that. Okay. Now, guys, let us go for the main app and let me get the object of the motor. Context dot get bean of motor.class. Context.getBean of motor.class m1. System.out.println m1.hash code. m1.hash code. Now similarly, I'm going to get the same class object once again, m2.hash code. Okay, let me run this application, run as a Java application. M1 and M2 having two different hash codes, M1 and M2 having the same hash code. M1 and M2 having two different hash codes, they are having the same hash code. They're having the same hash code. Why I'm getting the two objects from the IOC, right? Why there is same hash code? Why there is same hash code? Come on. Why there is same hash code? I need your answer, guys. Please respond. Today's session is very interesting, isn't it? Today's session is interesting or boring? Huh? Boring. Today's session boring. Interesting. See, all these annotations we are going to use in the Spring Boot also, guys. I'm preparing the background for the Spring Boot. I'm preparing the background for the Spring Boot. And some people don't know about this component scanning, configuration and all. So it's very, very, very important topic today. We are doing the base for Spring Boot. We are doing the base for Spring Boot. Okay. So once you are clear with these annotations, so from next Monday, we can start with our Spring Boot. From Monday, we can start with our Spring Boot. This is just a base for today. Base for Spring Boot. Okay. Now here, I'm trying to create the object for the motor, m1.hash code, m2.hash code. I'm trying to create the two objects for the motor, but I'm getting the same hash code. That means, what is the default scope now? What is the default scope of the motor? Can I say motor scope is a singleton by default? Yes. Can we change the scope of the bean? Can we change the scope of the bean? Yes. How to change the scope of the bean? How to change the scope of the bean? @scope annotation. Earlier we used XML scope, right? Now we need to use annotation scope component. For this, let me specify scope. Let me specify scope annotation. What is the scope we need to provide? Scope value is equal to, I will be specifying prototype. If I don't specify any scope, then by default it will become singleton. I don't want its scope as a prototype. For that, I'm giving the annotation as @scope value is equal to prototype. Now go to our main class to test it, run as a Java application. Now can you see for motor, two objects are created and two different hash codes are available? And can we see two objects are created? So can you believe that now motor class scope is a singleton? Scope value is equal to prototype. The scope is changed. As the scope is a prototype, we are getting two objects. Motor object 1 hash code, motor object 2 hash code. Is this clear? The default scope is a singleton. Now we change it the scope to prototype. So how we change it the scope to prototype? By using @scope annotation. Okay, we got it. Now, can we experiment these three annotations also? Auto void, qualifier and primary. We already know what is auto void. Auto void is used to perform dependency injection. It will identify the dependent object and it will inject into target object. Qualifier to perform auto wiring based on by name. Primary to represent primary bean for auto wiring. Okay, So now let me do auto wiring for this. So here report service is available. Let me create report service and let me create the report DAO. I want to perform the dependency injection. Class report DAO. I report DAO interface I am creating. Okay, in dot ashokit dot DAO. I report DAO I am taking public void generate report. Public void generate report. Okay, this is a interface. Okay, guys, this is a interface. So basically, what I am trying to do is I'm going to take one interface. I'm going to take one interface like this. Guys, it's okay, right? If I take another 15 minutes. Okay, na? Yes, fine, good. So here I'm going to take one interface called iReport. Okay, in this interface, I'm having a method called generate report. I'm having a method called generate report. This interface is implementing by two classes. One is Excel report, another one is PDF report. Two implementations are available for this. One is Excel report class. One is Excel report class and another one is PDF report class. These two classes are implementing this interface. Excel report is available, PDF report is also available. These two classes are implementation classes for this interface. Okay, iReport interface is available. For assume that earlier we have car class, petrol engine, diesel engine available earlier. Now I am changing the example. I'm taking a iReport. In the iReport, I have a generate report method. That interface is implemented by Excel report as well as PDF report. Now here I am having a report service class. I'm having a report service class. Report service is having iReport and generate method. iReport class is available and generate method is available. Okay, can I say report service class is dependent on iReport interface now? Can I say report service class is dependent on iReport interface now? Yes. iReport class is dependent on the report interface now. So auto wiring is required. Dependency injection is required. Dependency injection is required. Okay, what is dependency injection? The process of injecting one class object into another class object is called as dependency injection. So now here I'm going to create a separate project for this, guys. I don't want to merge with this one. I will create a new project, that is 05 application. File new Maven project. I will create 05 annotation app, 05 Spring annotation AutoWire app. Okay, that is artifact ID. Group ID I'm taking as in.ashokit. Click on finish. Click on finish. Annotations AutoWire application. Add the dependency in the pom.xml file. Add the dependencies in the pom.xml file. Okay, I'm adding the dependency in the pom.xml file. Perfect. Very good. Now let me close the other applications, close unrelated projects. Now let me create one interface in dot iReport interface. Okay, this interface I'm creating in dot ashokit dot service. Okay, in this I'm creating one method, public void generate report. Public void generate report. Okay, next one, new class. For this one, there are two implementations. One is Excel report. Excel report implements iReport. Okay, generate report. So here I can say system.out.println Excel report generated. Excel report generated. Okay, then similarly, let me create one more service class, which is called as PDF report. This class is generating a PDF report. PDF report implements iReport. Guys, concept is not new, just class names are different. That's it. System.out.println, it can say that PDF report generated. It can say that PDF report generated. Now, Excel report class I want to represent as a Spring Bean @ component. PDF report also I want to represent as a Spring Bean. This is also @ component. Okay, can I say Excel report is one Spring Bean and PDF report is one Spring Bean? Come on, guys. Can we say that Excel report is one Spring Bean, PDF report is also one Spring Bean? How can we say that Excel report and PDF report are the Spring Beans? We have given @ component annotation. For Excel report, I'm giving @ component. For PDF report also, I'm giving @ component. Those are annotations. Now, I will create one class called report service. In that class, I will use the iReport. Okay, new class, I will be creating report service. Or else do one thing. in.ashokid.reports, different package. Reports are available in the reports package. Report service will be available in the report service package. in.ashokid.service. Here I'm going to use report service. This report service I'm representing as a Spring Bean by using @ service. Okay, so here I'm going to take private iReport report, and here I'm writing public void generate report.generate report. That's it. Can I say my report service is dependent on the iReport? Remember earlier, car class dependent on the iEngine. Now report service is dependent on the iReport. Report service is dependent on the iReport. Are you guys able to understand my point? Are you guys able to understand my point? Yes. Now, dependency is there or dependency is not there. Our classes are having the dependency or our classes does not have the dependency. Classes are having the dependency or classes does not have the dependency, having the dependency. So classes are tightly coupled, classes are loosely coupled. My service is tightly coupled with the report or my service is loosely coupled with the report. Come on, guys. Classes are tightly coupled or classes are loosely coupled. Classes are tightly coupled or classes are loosely coupled. Come on, guys. Classes are loosely coupled because we are using interface. Tightly coupled. Who is that? Someone is saying Vijaya Reddy. These are loosely coupled. Rajnikant saying tightly coupled. Vijaya Reddy saying tightly coupled. Rajnikant saying that tightly coupled. No, guys, the classes are loosely coupled because my report service class is talking to interface. We are using interface. These classes are loosely coupled. These are not tightly coupled. Classes are loosely coupled. Okay. Now I want to perform the dependency injection. So dependency injection, programmer should perform. IOC container will perform. Dependency injection will be performed by the programmer or dependency injection will be performed by IOC container. Dependency injection will be performed by IOC container. I'm going to write @auto void. I'm writing @auto void. Okay. Now When I write @auto void annotation at this variable, that will become field injection. Earlier, we have seen setter injection, constructor injection with the property tag and constructor tag. Today, we are writing auto void annotation at the variable. That means it will become field injection. I already explained how field injection will work. By using reflection API, field injection is going to work. By using reflection API, field injection will be working. Now, IOC container should inject the dependent object into this variable. So this variable name is report. Is there any bean available with a name called report? By name type, by name. Is there any bean whose name is report? Is there any bean whose name is report? No, not available. With by name, it cannot identify. With by name, if it cannot identify, then automatically it will go for by type. What is the type of the variable? The type of the variable is iReport. For the iReport, how many implementations are available? For iReport, how many implementations are available? Excel report is one implementation. PDF report is one implementation. Out of these two implementations, which one it has to inject now? Out of these two implementations, which one it has to inject now? Will it inject Excel or it will inject PDF? It will inject to ambiguity. Ambiguity problem, because IOC will get confused. Hey Baba, you asked me to perform auto wiring for this variable. This variable is a reference type variable. Variable name is report. In this project, there is no bean whose name is report. There is no bean whose name is report. So it will check for the type. What is the type of the variable? Type is iReport. For iReport, two implementations available. How can I store two objects into one variable? I cannot do that. It will fail. It will fail. Can we see that? Let me create the config class and start the IOC. Class app config. I'm creating app config class. I'm giving the package name as in.ashokit.cfg. How to represent a class as a configuration class? Come on, guys. Which annotation I need to use to represent this class as a configuration class? What is the annotation? @configuration. To represent this Java class as a configuration class, I need to use @configuration annotation. So by default, this class will scan only this current class package. I don't want to scan only this. I want to scan all the packages in the project. What is the base package? In.ashokit. How to specify the base package, guys? Can you tell me how to specify the base package name? How to specify the base package name? By using component scan. I will be giving @component scan. @component scan. Base packages. Base packages is equal to array. You can configure multiple. I'm configuring one. That is in.ashokit. Now it will scan all the packages which are starting with this name. Excel report. It is a Spring Bean. Object will be created. iReport interface. Leave that. PDF report. Spring Bean. Object will be created. Report service. Spring Bean. Object will be created. And it is having auto wiring. So then IOC is responsible to perform the auto wiring. First, it will check for by name. Is there any bean available with this variable name? No. Then it will go for by type. Is there any bean matching with this type? Yes. Excel report is implementing that. PDF report also implementing. Problem. So two beans are matching with this data type. IOC will run into ambiguity problem. Application will fail. Application will fail. Okay. Can we start the IOC and can we check the behavior of the IOC now? Can we start the IOC and can we check the behavior of the IOC? Okay. I'm taking test class in.ashokit.test. Okay. Just let me start my IOC container main method. How to start the IOC container? Application context. Context is equal to new annotation config application context. What is the configuration class? My configuration class is appconfig.class. That's it. That's it. Let's get the object of the service. How to get the object of the service? Context dot get bean of report service dot class. I got the report service object. Service dot generate. Service dot generate. See, I'm creating IOC container by using application context. For that, I am passing new annotation config application context. App config dot class. I'm giving my configuration class. It is going to scan the packages which are starting with in.ashok.it. Objects will be created for the component classes. Then I'm asking IOC to give me the bean object, report service. Report service is having auto wiring. When the report service is having auto wiring, which object will be injected, which report will be generated? We don't know. Check that. Right click, run as Java application. Guys, what happened? No unique bean definition exception. No qualifying bean of type is available. Expected single bean, but found 2 beans. Boss, here variable name is not matching. Then it is checking for by type. When it go for by type, there are 2 beans are matching with that. Which bean it has to inject? It got confused. Which bean it has to inject? It got confused. Okay, guys. Now, how to resolve this confusion for IOC now? In 2 ways we can resolve the confusion for IOC. One is by using primary annotation. Second one is by using qualifier annotation. We can resolve this ambiguity by using in 2 ways. First of all, do you understand what is this auto wiring? Injecting the dependent object into target object is called as auto wiring. So this auto wiring means it is trying to inject the value to this variable. How it is injecting the value to the variable? We already discussed auto wiring modes. Na? In the previous session, we discussed about auto wiring modes. Do you remember? Do you remember when I explained auto wiring modes? I told you that when we go for auto wiring mode, by name will be available, by type will be available, constructor will be available. With the XML configuration, I explained by name. By name means IOC will identify dependent bean object based on the bean ID or bean name. So what is the variable name? Report. Is there any bean available whose name is report to inject it? No. So with the bean name, IOC not able to identify the dependent. When IOC not able to identify with the bean name, IOC will go for bean by name. When the IOC not able to identify with by name, IOC will go for by type. What is the data type of the variable? What is the data type of the variable? iReport. For iReport is a class or iReport is an interface? Guys, iReport is a class or iReport is an interface? iReport is a class or iReport is an interface? iReport is an interface. Can IOC create the object for the interface and inject into target? Can IOC create the object for interface and create the object? No. No. So what IOC is going to do now? IOC will check for the implementation classes. IOC is checking for the implementation classes. Okay. How many implementation classes are available? 2 implementation classes are available. Which implementation class it has to inject? Confused. That's where ambiguity. That's where we got the ambiguity. How to resolve that ambiguity? In 2 ways. Suppose Excel report available, PDF report is available. My always priority is PDF, primary. What I am doing, guys? Primary. Now run this application. Run as Java application. When I run this as a Java application, what happened? PDF object is injected. PDF report is generated. PDF report is generated. Okay. Here you can print it. System.out.println report.getClass.getName. Injected. Which object is injected? We can print it. Which object is injected? We can print it. Run as Java application. Which object is injected, guys? PDF report object is injected. So earlier ambiguity we got. How we resolve that ambiguity? Earlier we got ambiguity. How we resolve that ambiguity? By setting primary annotation to, by setting the primary annotation to one class, we resolve the ambiguity. If I set primary annotation for both classes, guys, what will happen? If I set primary annotation for both classes, what will happen? Again, ambiguity, na? IOC will confuse. So primary annotation we need to set for only one class. That class will be considered for the auto wiring. That class will be considered for the auto wiring. Okay. Suppose I don't want to go for primary. For this bean, I will give the name as a PDF. I'm giving the component name as a PDF. For Excel report, I'm giving the component name as Excel. Okay. Now we can go for qualifier. If the bean is having a name, @qualifier, I can give the name as Excel. @qualifier. Boss, there are two beans are available, but you consider the bean which is having the name as Excel. So Excel name I have given for the bean. This bean name is Excel. PDF report bean name is PDF. When you are doing the auto wiring, you consider the bean whose name is Excel. If you want to resolve the ambiguity, you can go for either primary. You can declare one of the bean as a primary. You can declare one of the bean as primary. If you don't want to declare the bean as primary, you can declare the qualifier. It will identify the correct bean based on the name now. So I am assigning the name to the Excel report. The bean name is Excel. For PDF report, I am giving the bean name as a PDF. When I am doing the auto wiring, I am giving the qualifier as Excel. That means I am telling to IOC to consider Excel bean for the auto wiring. Run as Java application. Now see, Excel report is generated. Are we able to resolve the ambiguity by using qualifier and primary? You can't use both implementations, only one for one variable. Can you store two values into single variable? When I'm declaring a variable integer I, 10, integer I have declared. What you can do? Can you store I is equal to 20, 10, both values? No, you cannot. Similarly, here report variable is available. In that variable, only one implementation object we can store. Only one implementation object. This is a variable. It can hold only one value. If you want one more report like this now, if you want this Excel report, if you want Excel report and at the same time you want PDF report also, then you need to declare one more bean variable. Okay. Here you need to specify as a PDF report and you can specify as a PDF report. Now, in this variable, Excel object will be injected. In this variable, PDF object will be injected. Whatever the object you want, you can call that object method. So if you want to inject to two, then we need to take two variables. Okay. If you want the PDF, you need to declare like this. If you want Excel, you need to declare like this. Yes, perfect. So are you clear with all these 10 annotations, which are very, 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 very important for our Spring Boot classes? Okay. @configuration to represent Java class as a configuration class. @component scan to identify Spring Beans available in the project. @component to represent Java class as a Spring Bean. @service to represent Java class as Spring Bean. Repository to represent Java class as Spring Bean. Scope to represent Bean scope. Auto void to perform dependency injection. Qualifier to perform auto wiring based on by name. primary to represent primary bean for auto wiring, bean to call the method which returns the bean object. Okay. Yes, guys. So please, Vivek Mishra, this is basically object class method, man. Class name, variable name dot get class dot get name. This get class dot get name, get class is the object class method. From that, I'm getting the name of the class. That's it. Variable name dot get class dot get name to get the name of the class with a package name. Sir, can we change report name from test? What report name you can change from test? Report service. Yes, here also you can give the name for the report service. That based on that service name, you can get the object. Yes, you can get the object based on the ID which we have given. Based on the class name, you can get it. Based on the bean name also, you can get it. Got it? Good, perfect. Thank you, guys. Today it is very, very important session. So please practice all these annotations that we discussed today. Tomorrow we have Gradle class at 7:30 p.m. IST. Tomorrow we have Gradle class at 7:30 p.m. IST. I'm going to upload the today's class notes in the portal. I think last class notes was not uploaded. Today, final notes I'm uploading. Yeah, guys. So with this, we are stopping our discussion related to Spring framework stuff. From Monday, I will start with the Spring Boot. Okay, guys. So all these concepts again will come in the Spring Boot. All these concepts will come again in the Spring Boot. Please practice these annotations today and tomorrow. Tomorrow evening, we have Gradle workshop. For the tomorrow's Gradle class, new Zoom link, guys. We already shared the Zoom link in the WhatsApp group. Please join the Gradle workshop with the new Zoom link for tomorrow. From Monday, our regular Spring Boot classes are going to start. Okay, guys. Yeah. Yeah, Spring Boot, Spring MVC, everything will be covered. Don't worry. Yeah. Spring AOP also I will teach one example. Don't worry. Spring AOP example also I will teach, and Spring Boot will be starting from Monday. Okay? Fine, guys. Any questions, anybody? You can unmute your mic.
Sir, one question. Can we create a bean for like repository interface and inject into service layer? I have seen in one videos in online learn code with Durgesh I was seeing. So is it possible?
Yes, sir, because that is Spring Data JPA concept. So when I explain Data JPA, you will understand that. Basically, when we create interface and when you inject, internally it will create the implementation class object. That implementation class object will be injected.
Sir, can you please upload the
program? This question was asked to me in interview.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, we can do that.
Sir, one more thing is base package and base package class name. There are two attributes I found, sir, when you are using @component scan. What is the other one, sir?
Base package class means if you declare a class as a configuration class, that class you can pass as input, or directly base package name you can pass as a input. You can pass class as a input, or you can pass package name as input directly.
Oh, only what are the classes we want to give it to the IOC? Only those. Okay.
Yes, right.
Instead of having all the classes in the package.
Correct. But giving the package name is recommended than that.
Oh, generally I'm asking, sir.
Hello, sir.
Just
sir, when we go for the primary annotation and qualifier annotation, major, what are the difference? Like when we
primary annotation means it is going to identify based on the type of the bean. Qualifier annotation means it will identify based on the name of the bean. So if you want to go for by name, based on the name, if you want to inject, then you can go for qualifier. If you don't want to go for by name, I want to inject based on the data type, then you will go for primary. So generally, one interface will not have two implementations in the project, right? If you have it, then you will go for qualifier. If you don't have it, you will go for primary.
Okay.
Hello?
Yep.
Hello?
Yes, madam, tell me.
Sir, I have one confusion in auto-wired annotation. Can you means auto-wired it is used for the object dependency, na? So can you please explain that auto-wired annotation?
Auto-wire annotation is used to inject the dependent object into target object. It is not for public or private. Any dependent object you want to inject into target object, that can be done by using auto-wiring. Okay.
Auto wiring, we can use dependency injection, right?
Yes, auto-wiring is used to perform the dependency injection. Now, here I have a Excel report, one variable is available. I want to
Okay.
inject the dependent object into this variable. That can be done by this auto-wide annotation. Auto-wide, already we explained, right? Auto-wiring concept, it is used to inject the dependent object into target object. It is used to perform the dependency injection.
So here, auto-wide applicable field injection.
It is happening the field injection here because we specified auto-wide annotation at the field level. That's why it will perform field injection. If you specify this annotation at the setter method, it will perform setter injection. If you specify at the constructor, it will perform constructor injection.
Okay.
Yeah, auto-wide annotation, you can use at 3 places: field level, setter method level, constructor level.
Hello, sir. I report interface having, for example, this interface, some 10 classes are implementing this interface. So for 10 classes, we need to give this auto-wide 10 times we need to give.
No, if you
This,
have 10 implementations for this, how many implementations you want to use in this class? That one only you will inject, right? If you want to use a 10 implementations, then you need to declare 10 variables.
yeah, that's what 10 variable we need to declare. Instead of that, why IOC can do everything for.
No,
as we
man.
need-
Simple. If you have 10 implementations, how IOC will know that which one you want to use? It is your requirement, right? How IOC will guess that?
That based on class name, it should identify and it should create things. That's what IOC, why
Listen.
can't do that?
Listen to me. Whenever you are declaring a 10 variables, suppose if you declare that as a Excel report, IOC can inject based on the class name directly.
Yes.
Yeah, if you declare the class name, then it is a tightly coupling, right?
Yes, yes.
Directly your class is talking to another class, it is a tightly coupling. Tomorrow, Excel report is removed from the project, then your class will not work. To achieve loosely coupling, we are using interface.
Interface.
When we use interface, this interface having 10 implementations, how IOC will understand which one you will use? How it will guess?
So it should create 10 objects, and as
Yes.
per my requirement, that object I can use like that.
You have to use it. If you have only one implementation, there is no problem. Directly
Yes.
IOC will create the object for that, will inject into your variable. But you have 10 objects, 10 implementations. Out of 10, which one it has to inject? It cannot decide. It cannot take the decision, right? Because it is your choice.
Yes.
Right.
Correct. That ambiguity error it is.
Hello, sir. Can we
How Spring identify these many annotations, sir? How Spring identify these many annotations?
How Spring?
Identify the annotations, sir.
Which one?
Every annotation, sir. I'm talking about every annotation.
Because we are
How
starting.
Spring know about?
Yeah, because we are configuring this class as annotation config application context, right? Based on this, it will read all. It will read the class and it will check what is the annotation available.
Okay. Internally, it use.
Internally, it will read
KOP,
the annotations of the classes.
Okay.
Hello, sir. Good evening.
Hello.
Hello, sir. Good evening.
Very good evening, sir.
At auto-wire annotation, where we can applicable, it is applicable for field level or the setter level or
3 places. 3 places. Field, setter, constructor. You can use at any place.
Okay. Sure. Thank you.
Sir.
Yeah.
Actually, dependent class scope is by default scope is singleton, right? We explicitly we mention dependent scope as a prototype one class and another class target class. We can mention scope as singleton. What scope it will execute, sir? It will create object.
Singleton only. When you inject prototype into singleton, the result will be singleton only.
Oh, thanks.
Right.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Masudi.
Yeah.
Good evening, sir. Can we use both qualifier and primary annotations in the same class?
Sir, you need to use
one.
only one to resolve the ambiguity. Why we need to use both? You got my point?
Yeah.
You need to use only one to resolve the ambiguity. If you use both, again it will create the ambiguity, right?
Okay. Okay.
Sir, our main intention is to resolve the ambiguity. Why we will use both again?
If I get ambiguity, then we go primary.
Yes. That is what we discussed today.
Yes. Okay.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Hello, sir. In this example, we have performed field injection, right, through AutoWire.
Yes.
So field injection is not recommended, right?
Sir, I'm not saying that which one is recommended, which one is not recommended. Today intention is not about the which is recommended, which is not recommended. Today's topic is how annotations are working. So when it comes to comparison of the injections, I will tell you which one is better.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sure, sir. Masudi.
Yeah. Yes, Masood, tell me.
There are two classes like employee and address classes. Employee depend on the address classes. So if I perform the initialize bin and disclosure bin, so the destroy and initialize bin will be executed both of the classes or one class?
Both, sir. Both.
Okay. So, but it's showing us that there is only one methods are executing.
You mean you have destroy method on one bin that is dependent on another bin. For which class is having the destroy method, only that object will be removed, not the dependent object. Which class is implementing that lifecycle interface, right? Only that class object will be destroyed, not the other class. Every class will have its own lifecycle.
Okay, it means that we need to, like, if I need to release the memory from the address also.
Correct. Correct.
Initialize bin and disposal bin, right?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Fine, guys. Thank you. With this, I'm stopping for today. I have shared the diagram also. Please practice this. Notes already uploaded. Tomorrow class on Gradle. Tomorrow Gradle Zoom link will be different. We have already shared in the WhatsApp group. So please don't miss the Gradle class from tomorrow. And from Monday, I will start the Spring Boot at 7:30 p.m. See you tomorrow in the Gradle class. Thank you.